Good afternoon. Welcome to another video with a guy and his projects. Today we are working on my little brother's 2004 F150 FX4 4x4, whatever the heck it is, 5.4 engine. What we just did is the wheel bearings, the hub bearing assemblies. And if you want to see that video, make sure you click on the subscribe button and check out the playlist with the F150 playlist. So the F150 playlist is going to have some of this truck. It's going to have some of my bigger brother's truck and any other F150s I work on, including my wife's sister's husband's 2020 F150. We got a lot of F150s going on. So check out that playlist. You'll see some on this truck, some on the other F150s. So we just did the wheel hub assemblies. Now we're doing the inner and outer tie rods. So if you've ever needed to do that, ever wanted to do that, super simple, super easy. I'm going to show you how to do that here. You can probably do it in under a half hour if you're taking your time. I mean, we just had a big old Chinese lunch and we did the driver's side and it took less than half an hour. So easy to do. Yeah, let's get started. All right, so in order to do this job, you do need a couple tools, all basic for the most part. You need a stool, very important. Not really, but you know. You need some, really, you don't even need a ratchet for anything other than taking off the tire. You do need to get rid of the castle nut on your tie rod end, and you need to bust the inner tie rod tool off. So for that, they sell these tools. This is an inner tie rod removal and installation tool. It's pretty cool. It's kind of annoying, kind of cumbersome. And on this vehicle, you don't actually need this. All we're going to use, instead of spending $80 on that, we're going to use a pipe wrench. That's probably better, but this works. Better, works. Expensive, cheap. One purpose, multi-purposes. Understand? So nothing wrong with using the good old pipe wrench. So we're going to use that. You're going to need a couple of crescent wrenches. Don't pay attention to the rest of the tools. They're just who cares. You're going to need your parts. You're going to need your tie rod end. I'm going to link this in the description below. I will also link this tool in the description below if you do want to use it or need to use it. It's a valuable tool, so I'll link that down there. And then you're going to need your inner tie rod. This we bought at O'Reilly's. When I say we, I mean my little brother. It's his truck, I ain't buying it. So he bought this at O'Reilly's. I will link an alternative down below in the description as well. So if you want to buy them all online, I'm an online guy. We were just going to do the outers. And then when we got into it, we realized the inners were shot. So we had to go call an audible and buy this immediately. So that's really it. So let's get started. Chalk your tires, raise up the truck, pull off the tire you want to work on first. First thing you're going to do is remove the cotter pin under the castle nut on the outer tie rod. Yours should be a little bit differently. The previous person did it kind of awkwardly on this one, but you're just going to bust this loose. This is your castle nut on the outer tie rod end. Castle nut will just come off. And now you're going to have to be not afraid to get aggressive with your truck. Sometimes it is okay to be aggressive. Typically these will not just pull out. They get kind of seized into the little area. Just give a couple good knocks with a 3-pound sledgehammer. You can also bounce up if you're not planning on keeping the tie rod, which we're not obviously, so that'll pop it loose. As you can see here, the inner tie rod is very loose. You're going to go ahead and bust loose your outer control arm. It's going to be 2 crescent wrenches. Once you get that retaining nut backed off, count your turns. Very important to count your turns. Even though we are replacing the inner, it's going to get you way closer on your alignment if you go ahead and count your turns off. For us, it was like 24 turns. Get your retaining nut off. Now you're going to go ahead and work on the inner boot or dust cover. You got one hose clamp right there. In the back, you may have a zip tie or a metal type clamp. Ours is a metal type clamp. If you get a flathead screwdriver on it and pound on it with a hammer, you can usually snap it off. If you can't snap it off, sometimes your screwdriver will go underneath the hose clamp, at which point you can just twist until it breaks. And that's it right there. It's kind of broken. It's metal, so it can be stiff. You can just work itself out and pull it out. Boom. You are now no longer zip tied to anything, so you can pull the boot off. It sits in a couple ridges on that inner tie rod. It's kind of got to pop it off, but it'll come off. And we're going to go ahead and replace this inner as well. At this point, go ahead and turn the steering wheel, turn the truck to on, and turn your steering wheel towards the side you're working on to extend it, so you can get your pipe wrench. If you're not using a pipe wrench and you're using the actual inner tie rod tool, that'll work. You don't have to turn the wheels. This is just for access. Go ahead and bust it loose. Once it's loose, you can just spin her on off. Just like so. Very wobbly this one was. So now you can unpackage your new inner tie rod. We're already halfway done if you haven't noticed. Get rid of this backing nut that you're going to use later, because you're going to have to get your boot on, so it has to come off. And go ahead and tighten this on to the rack and pinion. Just like so. Use your pipe wrench. You're going to get this in nice and tight. Most vehicles that I've worked on, I haven't been able to utilize a pipe wrench. Typically I end up using my tie rod tool, which is exactly what it's built for, so it is handy to have. Again, there's that little lip over the inner tie rod. Once you get the boot on in place on the outside on the inner tie rod, go ahead and turn the steering wheel back so you're not fighting to extend the boot while you're trying to zip tie it back in place. Just any old zip tie will work as long as it's a heavy duty zip tie-ish. And then you're just going to, I didn't have any long ones, we had to put two together of course, make it look all ghetto, plus the yellow, you know. Go ahead and feed this over the lip on the rack and pinion, and you can go ahead and get your zip tie or combination of zip ties over that ridge on the boot and tighten it on down. It seems like a cheap idea to use a zip tie, but they tend to actually work out pretty good in this application. You're going to get your hose clamp on the outside of the boot, just like it came off. Perfect. And at this point, you can go ahead and put your backer nut on and pull out your new outer tie rod. Again, linked down in the description below. Count your turns back on. Ours was 24, and then you can go ahead and put your backer nut on. I would wait to tighten it until you get this in place. Notice how the new tie rod is, the inner tie rod holds and supports the weight, not like the old flippity floppity one. Wiggle the knuckle around while you shove that in there and it'll go right in. Get your castle nut, and you're going to sink this down. I don't know the torque specs at this point in editing the video, but you just go pretty much as tight as you can, more or less, and then a little bit tighter, whatever it takes to line up the hole in the bolt so you can get your cotter pin through. And as you can see there, you very rarely guess it perfectly on the first try. Once you can get your cotter pin through, go ahead and, again, I apologize about the blurriness. New camera, still figuring it out. And stick your cotter pin through. You're going to grab your needle nose pliers or whatever you're using and just bend the ends around to keep the cotter pin in place, which purpose is to keep the castle nut in place. Now you can do your little grease zerk before it rolls away on the floor and you can't find it anymore. Don't torque this down, just get it to where it stops moving. It should not be super torquey tight. You don't want to put it into the ball part of the ball joint. So just get it snug, which is right about there. Now you're going to tighten the backer nut on your tie rod. Get it nice and tight. Keep everything in place. Your alignment shop is probably going to move this anyway, but you can now grease up your ball joint if on the tie rod if yours is greasable. If non-greasable, obviously you'll skip the greasing step. This took about 8 to 10 pumps. You're filling up the dust boot essentially until it starts to leak out. Some dust boots there's a weep hole, others it'll just come out the top like you're about to see right here at the top right side of the dust boot. And right there you can see that raspberry jam seeping. Now you know you're full. And go ahead and clean up your mess, because any grease exposed will collect dirt, turn into a muddy, nasty crud that is a pain in the butt to get off later. And we're done now, guys. Don't forget your alignment stop. Put your tire on, and we're good to go. All right, guys, that's all there is to it. This took us 18 minutes. We timed it, 18 minutes. We saved hundreds of dollars by doing it ourselves. I'm not saying that everybody should do this themselves, but I am saying if you're short on money, or if you just want to learn your vehicle, this is something you can totally do by yourselves. With the exception, you now have to go for an alignment. Do not get an alignment immediately afterwards. Especially if you do the inners and outers. If you do the outers and you count your turns, sometimes you can get lucky, but I still highly recommend getting an alignment when you're done with this job before you drive very far at all, because you're going to destroy your tires if your alignment's bad. Let the pros do that. And you can let the pros do the whole job. That's 100% up to you. I have nothing against mechanics. I'm not a mechanic. I have no professional experience, no professional training as a mechanic. I just like to figure things out and do it myself. And my little brother here said, hey, they're going to charge me a crap ton of money that I don't want to pay. And I said, well, let's do it. So that's where I'm at. You saw it. I used the same pair of latex gloves for this whole job. Sure, there's a couple of tears, but they're latex gloves. If you can use the same pair of latex gloves throughout an entire job, you know it's an easy job, okay? So not all tie rods are easy. Not all inner tie rods are easy, but the tie rods on this truck, inner and outer, are easy. You saw in the video there, where when you're trying to get the boot on or even just access the inner tie rod, just get in the truck, turn the key to on, not start, and then just turn the wheel whichever way you want. That'll extend that arm out, give you better access. And then when it comes time to put the boot on, turn the wheel the other way so you're not stretching the boot and trying to get it back on at the same time. So we did not replace the boots in this truck. The boots were still good and nobody had them on hand. I will try to link some down below for you if you want to replace yours during this project as well. If you liked what you saw, make sure you leave me a thumbs up and smash that subscribe button down below. Smash that subscribe button down below. And yeah, there's a couple videos in this truck and plenty of other F150 videos in the F150 playlist on my channel. So appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.